Alara had never expected her 25th birthday to be anything special. The morning began like any other, sunlight streaming lazily through her small apartment, the faint aroma of coffee drifting from the kitchen below, and the distant hum of the city awakening outside. She stretched and yawned, feeling the quiet melancholy of ordinary life pressing against her chest. Yet, the moment she opened her eyes fully, she realized that something was terribly, impossibly wrong. The room around her was not her own. Dark polished wood walls enclosed her in a space that seemed both ancient and alive. Velvet curtains hung from the tall windows, their deep crimson fabric glowing in the early morning light. A massive four-poster bed held her beneath soft sheets that smelled faintly of pine and smoke. And at the foot of the bed, curled in an almost regal posture, lay a wolf, enormous, with silver eyes that seemed to pierce straight through her soul. Before she could fully comprehend the scene, a shadow shifted in the room. A man stepped forward from the dim corner, his presence commanding attention like the pull of a storm. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell carelessly around his face, he moved with a grace that seemed unnatural, almost predatory. His eyes, the color of amber on a cold night, locked on her. "You're awake," he said, his voice low and steady, resonating with authority. "I wasn't sure if you would be." Ilara's heart hammered in her chest. "Where am I?" Her voice trembled, and she felt the first stirrings of panic. Her mind raced. Had she been drugged? Kidnapped? Was this some cruel dream? The man's lips curved, almost imperceptibly. "You are where you belong, though you do not yet know it." And then the wolf, the massive silver-eyed wolf, shifted, lifting its head. Its gaze softened as it looked at her, and then it did something that made Ilara's blood run cold and hot all at once. It spoke. "Mate," it said, the word rolling from its throat with a sound that was more felt than heard. Ilara froze. Her mind stumbled over the impossible, over words that should not exist. Wolves didn't speak. Humans didn't wake up in strange beds beside talking wolves, and yet the creature's eyes were fixed on her, full of reverence and certainty. The man beside it, Kalen, she would later learn, stepped closer. There was tension in every line of his body, a tightness that spoke of centuries of restraint. "Do not fear," he said, his voice softer now, but still carrying the weight of command. "The wolf sees the truth before the mind does. You are marked." Ilara repeated, trembling. "I don't understand." Kalen's eyes flicked to the wolf and back to her. "The bond has chosen you. The prophecy has begun." Ilara wanted to back away, to flee, but the edges of the room seemed to blur, and the wolf's gaze held her in place. Fear and fascination warred in her chest. She had always known there were stories of strange powers, of old curses and ancient lineages whispered in shadowed corners of her kingdom. But she had never imagined that any of it could touch her. A simple woman with no knowledge of magic or destiny. Kalen studied her carefully, his expression unreadable. There was strength and danger in him, but also hesitation. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it made her wonder if he too was bound by something beyond his control. "You must understand," he said finally, breaking the silence. "This is no ordinary bond. It is not only your fate but mine, and it is dangerous." Ilara's chest tightened. "Dangerous how?" "The bond chooses its mate once in a lifetime," Kalen explained, his voice steady but tinged with something she could not name. "To resist it is impossible. To embrace it is perilous. Either path changes everything." Her head spun. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet every fiber of her being was drawn toward him, toward the wolf. She did not know whether it was fear, fascination, or something deeper that stirred inside her. She could feel the pull of the bond, subtle and insistent, tugging at her heart like a tide she could not resist. The wolf shifted again, rising to its full, imposing height. Its silver eyes softened as it padded closer, pressing its massive head against her hand. The weight of its presence was overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. She gasped at the warmth, the recognition in its gaze. It was as if the creature had been waiting for her, guarding her even before she existed in this moment. You call me mate," she whispered, disbelief and awe tangled in her voice. The wolf lowered its head, almost bowing. "Mate," it repeated, a rumble deep in its chest. Kalen's gaze darkened, a flicker of something primal passing through his features. "It is not your fault that the bond has chosen you," he said quietly. But it is your life now, Ilara, and your choices will matter more than you realize. Ilara wanted to speak, to protest, to demand an explanation she could understand, but words failed her. The room was heavy with a strange energy, as if the air itself had thickened with the weight of destiny, her mind filled with visions she could not grasp. A world of power, of curses, of ancient clans that walked between shadow and light, and the certainty that her life as she had known it was gone forever. She tried to stand, only to find her legs trembling under the reality of her new world. Kalen moved closer, his presence a shield against her panic, yet also a challenge she could not ignore. "You will need to learn," he said softly, "and I will guide you, whether you wish it or not." Ilara swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. There was an intensity in his eyes that made her feel as if he could see every hidden fear, every secret longing, every hesitation she had ever buried. Yet beneath it all she sensed a trace of vulnerability, a fragment of the man he was before he became the Alpha. A man who had loved and lost, who had been broken and remade by the burdens of power. For the first time, Ilara realized that this was not merely a story of danger or destiny. It was a story of connection, of bonds that transcended logic, and of a journey she could not refuse. Her heart pounded with a strange mixture of fear and excitement. Kalen studied her silently, his expression unreadable. The wolf sat beside him again, a sentinel of loyalty and instinct. The room was still except for the soft rustle of curtains and the steady beat of her own heart. And then, without warning, Kalen spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. "You do not know me, Ilara. You do not know the lives I have led, or the darkness I have carried. But the bond does not ask for permission. It takes what it needs." Ilara shivered, not from cold, but from the sheer force of what he said. The bond, the prophecy, the wolf that called her mate. Every thread of her former life seemed to unravel in that moment, leaving her suspended between fear and the strange, magnetic pull of fate. "You," she began, her voice trembling. "How am I supposed to understand any of this?" Kalen took a slow step closer, and for the first time he allowed a flicker of softness to touch his expression. "You will understand," he said. "But not today. Today, you survive. Tomorrow, you learn who you are meant to be." The wolf's eyes glimmered, watching her with a depth of intelligence and emotion that went beyond the natural. Its massive head tilted slightly as if nudging her toward the impossible. "Mate," it murmured again, and this time Ilara felt something stir deep within her. A recognition, a pull, a truth she could not deny. Her pulse raced, her mind spun, and her heart ached with a mixture of fear, longing, and fascination she could not name. She knew with a certainty that terrified her, that her life had changed forever, that she had been drawn into a world of ancient power, of curses and destiny, and into the orbit of a man and a wolf who claimed her as theirs. And yet, as she looked into Kalen's eyes, as she felt the weight of the wolf beside her, she realized that some part of her did not want to resist. Some part of her had been waiting for this moment her entire life. The sunlight shifted, falling across the bed and illuminating the curve of her hand against the wolf's fur. A strange warmth spread through her chest, an acknowledgement of the bond, the prophecy, and the destiny that had chosen her. Kalen's eyes softened fractionally, almost imperceptibly, and he murmured, "You are mine. But perhaps, Ilara, you will choose me as well." Ilara's breath caught. The world around her was unknown, dangerous, and impossible. Yet the pull in her chest, the whisper of the wolf, and the weight of the Alpha's gaze made one thing clear. Her life had changed forever, and there was no turning back. The wolf nudged her hand again, low rumble vibrating in its chest, and Kalen's voice, deeper now, resonated like thunder and shadow combined. "She is mine." Ilara's eyes widened as a chill of both fear and anticipation ran through her. She realized with trembling certainty that the bond had not just chosen her. It had claimed her body and soul. And in that moment, she understood one immutable truth. Her 25th birthday had begun, not with cake or candles, but with destiny knocking at her door. And she had no choice but to answer. The sun had barely risen when Ilara finally found the courage to move. Her fingers still tingled from the wolf's touch, and the memory of Kalen's amber eyes burned behind her eyelids. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet something deeper, Something unfamiliar and magnetic held her in place. Kalen stood silently by the window, his posture rigid, his gaze focused on the distant horizon. His wolf had retreated to a corner, lying in a position that suggested patience and vigilance. For a moment the room was quiet, but the air between them felt charged, as if waiting for an invisible storm to break. "Elara," Kalen said, his voice low, almost hesitant. "You must understand. Your presence here is no accident." Elara shivered, wrapping the silk blanket tighter around her shoulders. I don't understand any of this. The wolf the prophecy. I don't even know what it means." Kalen's expression softened, though only slightly. He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "The bond chose you because you were meant to be chosen. It recognizes strength, courage, and the capacity to endure, even when faced with the impossible." Elara took a shaky breath. "But I'm just a normal woman. I don't have strength or power. I can't do what you do." Kalen's amber eyes held hers, steady and unwavering. "Strength is not only in what you can wield with your hands. It is in what you can endure with your heart, and you have more strength than you realize." The wolf stirred, rising to its full, imposing height once again, its silver eyes fixed on her with unspoken intelligence, and Elara felt a strange warmth flood her chest. She reached out tentatively, letting her fingers brush against its fur. The wolf nudged her hand, and a low, vibrating rumble came from its throat, a sound of approval, of connection, of recognition. Elara's heartbeat quickened. Something unexplainable flowed through her, a mixture of fear, awe, and belonging. She glanced at Kalen, who was watching her intently, his expression unreadable. "You feel it," he said softly. "The bond between wolf and mate is ancient. It has existed for centuries, and it chooses without asking. It is not something you can fight. Only learn to understand." Elara nodded slowly, trying to steady herself. She wanted to flee, yet part of her wanted to stay, to understand this strange, powerful world she had stumbled into. "And what happens now?" she asked. Kalen's gaze darkened, the weight of centuries settling into his posture. "Now you learn. You must learn the ways of our world, the laws of the Alpha and the dangers that lurk in shadows. You are bound to me whether you wish it or not. And while that may seem frightening, it is also a gift." Elara swallowed hard. "A gift?" Kalen nodded, stepping closer. "A gift of protection, of purpose, of belonging. But it is also a test. The bond is not simple, and it does not forgive weakness." The wolf padded forward, brushing against her leg. Its eyes glimmered with intelligence and something more. A gentle insistence that she was part of something far larger than herself. Elara knelt slowly, letting her fingers rest against the wolf's thick fur. The warmth of the creature, its steady heartbeat beneath her hand, filled her with a sense of calm she had not felt in years. For the first time she realized that she was not entirely alone, not entirely helpless. Kalen's voice interrupted her thoughts, low and almost melodic. "The first lesson is to understand trust. Not the kind that is spoken, but the kind that is felt. In the heart, in the soul. The wolf trusts you because the bond recognizes truth. You must learn to trust it as well." Elara closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the wolf seep into her. Slowly she nodded, feeling a connection she could not explain. She realized that the bond was more than instinct. It was something ancient, something woven into the fabric of their world, a force that linked them beyond words. "You will not be safe here," Kalen said suddenly, breaking her reverie. His tone shifted, sharp and commanding. "There are others. Rival clans, enemies who would see this bond broken. They know of the prophecy, and they will not hesitate to strike if they sense weakness." Elara's chest tightened with fear. "Enemies? Here, now?" Kalen's gaze was firm, resolute. "Yes, and you must understand that the danger will not always come from outside. The bond challenges both the alpha and the mate. It tests courage, loyalty, and the ability to endure." She shivered again, feeling the weight of destiny pressing upon her. Yet beneath the fear there was something else, a spark of determination. She realized that she could not simply run from this world. If the bond had chosen her, if Kalen and the wolf had recognized her, then she had to rise to the challenge. For hours, Kalen taught her the basics of the Alpha's world. He showed her the hidden corridors of the estate, the secret passages used by wolves and Alpha guards, and the ancient symbols that marked clan territories. He explained the rules of hierarchy, the delicate balance of power, and the unseen currents of influence that shape their world. Ilara absorbed everything, her mind spinning with the enormity of it all. She was learning a language of power she had never known existed, a rhythm of life that was at once beautiful and terrifying, and all the while the wolf remained near her, its presence a steady reminder that she was part of something larger than herself. As night fell, the estate was bathed in silver moonlight, the shadows stretching long and mysterious. Kalen stood at the window, gazing out at the forest beyond, his expression unreadable. "Ilara," he said softly, turning to her. "Tonight the bond will reveal more than the day ever could. It is under the moonlight that the connection deepens, that truths hidden in the heart come forward." Ilara's pulse quickened. She could feel a tension in the air, a sense of anticipation that prickled her skin. She looked at the wolf, which rose gracefully, its silver eyes glowing in the moonlight. She felt a tremor of fear and exhilaration. "Are you ready?" Kalen asked, his voice low and almost hypnotic. Ilara nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her chest. I think I am." Kalen extended his hand and she took it tentatively. The touch was electric, a spark of energy that seemed to flow from him through the wolf and into her. She felt her heartbeat synchronize with theirs, a rhythm older than memory, stronger than any fear. The wolf stepped closer, brushing against her side, its warmth radiating through her. Ilara realized that she had never felt truly seen, truly recognized until this moment. The bond was more than instinct or magic. It was a connection of soul and heart, undeniable and unbreakable. Kalen's eyes softened as he spoke again, almost a whisper. "The bond will not always be easy, Ilara. There will be trials, tests, and moments when fear threatens to overwhelm you. But in those moments, remember this: you are not alone. You are mine and I am yours, and together, we will face what comes." Ilara's breath caught in her throat. The gravity of the words, the depth of the promise filled her with both awe and fear. She realized that this was no ordinary life she had returned to. This was a destiny she had never imagined, one that demanded courage, trust, and surrender to the impossible. The night deepened and the moon rose high, casting silver light across the forest and the estate. The wolf padded beside her, a constant reminder of the bond and the power it carried. Kalen's presence was both commanding and comforting, a paradox that left her heart racing. Suddenly, the wind shifted, carrying with it a whisper of movement from the shadows outside. Ilara's pulse quickened. She could sense it. Danger was near, and the bond, as strong as it was, had not shielded them from the outside world. Kalen's hand tightened around hers, and his voice was sharp, commanding, and protective. "They are here," he said, his amber eyes glowing in the moonlight. "Enemies who would see the bond broken. Stay close. Do not falter." Ilara's heart pounded as she looked into the forest beyond the estate, the silver light shimmering on the leaves. She felt the wolf shift beside her, growling low, warning of what was to come, and she realized, with a mixture of fear and determination, that she could not hide. She could not run. The bond had chosen her, the alpha had claimed her, and now the world itself was testing her. Her 25th birthday, she realized, had only just begun. The night air was thick with anticipation, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth through the windows of the alpha's estate. Ilara stood near the grand window, her hands pressed lightly against the cool glass as her mind raced with questions she could not yet answer. The bond pulsed through her, subtle and insistent, reminding her that she was no longer a stranger to this world. She was connected, to the wolf, to Kalen, and to a destiny she could not escape. Kalen moved behind her silently, the presence of a predator and protector combined. His amber eyes reflected the silver glow of the moon as he studied the shadows beyond the forest line. "They are close," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Those who would see the bond broken, and they do not act lightly." Ilara swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do they want?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. Kalen's jaw tightened. "To take what they believe belongs to them. They will not hesitate to use fear, force, or deception, and they will test you, as they will test me." The wolf shifted beside her, massive paws barely making a sound on the wooden floor. Its silver eyes glimmered with intelligence and warning. Ilara reached out instinctively, resting a hand against its thick fur. The warmth and steady heartbeat beneath her palm were grounding, a small comfort against the storm of uncertainty and danger that loomed outside. You must understand, Kaelin continued. Moving closer, the bond does not simply connect bodies. It connects hearts, minds, and spirits. You will feel emotions, memories, and instincts that are not solely your own. You may be frightened, overwhelmed, even angry, but these are the signs that the bond is working, that it is awakening within you both. Ilara nodded, trying to absorb his words. The idea of sharing thoughts and feelings with a wolf, and with the alpha she barely knew, was frightening. Yet she could feel the pull, subtle but undeniable, of something ancient and enduring, something that had been waiting for her long before she had been born. Before she could respond, a sharp rustle came from outside. The wolf growled low, its hackles rising. Kaelin's expression hardened, and he moved toward the door with fluid precision, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of a concealed blade. Ilara followed. Trembling, but the bond thrummed through her, steady and guiding. She felt her fear transform into something else, a quiet resolve, a willingness to face the unknown because running was no longer an option. Outside the estate, the shadows seemed to twist and coil like living things. Figures moved with careful stealth, but Kaelin's eyes missed nothing. He stepped into the moonlight, and the wolf followed, growling in low, warning tones. One of the figures stepped forward, and Ilara gasped. The intruder was cloaked, their face hidden beneath a hood, but their presence carried a weight of malice and intent. "Alpha Kaelin," the figure said, voice smooth and cold. "So this is the human your wolf has claimed." Kaelin's eyes narrowed, and his voice was a low growl. "You will leave now, or you will face consequences you cannot imagine." The figure laughed softly, a sound like distant thunder. "I am not here to talk, Alpha. I am here to remind you that the past never forgets and that no bond, not even one forged by destiny, can escape the debts you owe." Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine. Something in the Alpha's demeanor shifted, a flicker of pain and memory that he tried to hide. She realized with sudden clarity that Kaelin carried burdens far older and deeper than she had imagined. The wolf growled again, stepping protectively in front of her. Kaelin's hand rested briefly on its head, a silent acknowledgement of the shared understanding between them. Then he turned fully to the intruder, amber eyes blazing in the moonlight. "You have no claim here," Kaelin said, his voice low but filled with authority. "This human is under my protection. Any harm that comes to her will be answered in kind." The figure tilted their head, considering him. "Protection is not always enough, Alpha. Sometimes, the past reaches further than you think, and sometimes, the human you guard is the key to everything you fear to lose." Kaelin's jaw tightened, and he did not respond. He turned slightly, giving Ilara a brief, reassuring glance before signaling the wolf. The creature leapt forward, moving between them and the intruder with graceful, lethal precision. The figure stepped back, raising hands in mock surrender. "For now," they said, voice laced with warning, "but the reckoning will come. Remember, Alpha, no bond can erase history." With that, the shadowy figure melted back into the forest, leaving Ilara trembling and Kaelin silent, his expression unreadable. The wolf settled beside her once more, its massive body a comforting presence. Kaelin finally spoke, his voice softer now, almost reflective. "That was a reminder," he said. "The past has not forgotten me, Ilara, it never will. And you now are part of it." Ilara felt a chill run through her. "Part of it? How?" she asked. Kaelin turned to her fully, his amber eyes searching hers. "The bond you share with the wolf and with me ties you to everything I am and everything I have endured. You will see the echoes of the past, the mistakes, the losses, and the pain. You may even feel them as if they were your own. And you must survive them, not just for yourself, but for us." The weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest. Ilara had never imagined that a bond could carry such responsibility. Yet beneath the fear, a strange sense of purpose began to take root. She realized that she could not simply be a passive participant. She had to learn, to endure, to grow. Kaelin led her inside, moving through the estate with precise, silent steps. The corridors were lined with ancient tapestries depicting battles, alliances, and rituals long forgotten by ordinary humans. The weight of history pressed on Ilara, and she understood that this was a world where every choice mattered, where loyalty and courage were tested daily. They reached a chamber filled with books, scrolls, and artifacts, each one humming with subtle energy. Kaelin gestured toward them. Knowledge is power here, Ilara. You must learn who we are, what the bond means, and how to wield the strengths that lie within you. Fear is natural, but it cannot rule you. Ilara nodded, her fingers brushing over the spines of ancient tomes. The energy in the room thrummed through her fingertips, and she felt a strange resonance with the wolf at her side. It was as if the past, the present, and the future were intertwined, and she stood at the center of it all. Hours passed as Kaelin guided her through the history of the clans, the nature of the bond, and the dangers that lurked beyond the estate walls. Ilara absorbed everything, her mind racing with questions, revelations, and glimpses of possibilities she had never imagined. By the time she sat down beside the wolf, the moon had climbed high, bathing the chamber in silver light. The creature rested its massive head on her lap, and she felt the steady rhythm of its heartbeat beneath her fingers. A deep calm settled over her, a quiet acknowledgement that she was no longer alone in the world. Kaelin watched her silently, the faintest trace of a smile on his lips. "You are learning," he said softly. "Not just about the bond, but about yourself. And that is the first step toward survival, and toward the future that awaits you." Ilara looked up at him, meeting his gaze. There was something in his eyes that spoke of centuries of solitude, of battles fought both within and without, and of a vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. She realized with a start that he trusted her, in his own way guarded and measured, but real. Her heart ached with the weight of understanding. The bond was not merely about destiny or prophecy. It was about connection, trust, and the courage to face what could not be avoided, and she felt deep within her that she was ready to face it, not just as Kaelin's mate, but as a partner in a world that demanded courage, wisdom, and strength. A sudden noise from the forest outside broke the moment. A faint, deliberate rustle of leaves followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. The wolf's ears pricked, and it rose to its full height once more, growling low in warning. Kaelin's hand went instinctively to his blade, his expression hardening. "They are coming," he said, his voice sharp, carrying both warning and command. "And this time, they will not wait." Ilara's chest tightened, but the bond thrummed within her, steady and guiding. She touched the wolf's fur again, feeling the warmth and strength beneath her fingers. The pulse of connection reminded her that she was not alone, and that she had a role to play, a destiny she could not ignore. The shadows outside shifted once more, moving closer. Ilara swallowed hard, meeting Kaelin's gaze. His eyes were full of fire and determination, and for the first time she understood the depth of the challenge ahead. She was not merely a witness to history or destiny. She was part of it. And now, the trials of the bond, of loyalty, courage, and trust, were beginning in earnest. The forest outside the estate stirred with a restless energy, the wind carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Ilara stood beside the wolf, her fingers brushing its thick fur, feeling the steady pulse of life and instinct beneath her hand. Every muscle in the massive creature radiated tension, alertness, and protection. The bond thrummed through her, subtle but undeniable, anchoring her in a world she had barely begun to understand. Kaelin's eyes, amber and sharp as a predator's, scanned the shadows beyond the estate walls. His stance was rigid, every line of his body coiled with readiness. "They are close," he murmured, more to himself than to her, "and this time they do not come merely to warn." Ilara's heart quickened. She had expected challenges, whispers of danger, but now the reality pressed against her like the weight of a storm. "Who are they?" she asked softly, trying to steady her voice. Kaelin's jaw tightened. "Those who haunt my past. Those who would see the bond broken and take what they believe belongs to them. They know weaknesses I have tried to bury, and they will use every shadow and secret to their advantage." The wolf growled low, its silver eyes glimmering in the moonlight that spilled across the clearing outside. Ilara's hand tightened on its fur. There was something primal in the growl, a warning she could feel deep in her chest more than hear with her ears. The bond pulsed, reminding her that danger was not just a word, it was a presence, tangible and immediate. Before she could respond, a rustle in the forest drew their attention. From the shadows emerged a figure, moving with quiet confidence and a familiarity that made Kaelin's expression darken. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. There was a weight in the figure's presence, a knowledge that cut through the night like a blade. "It has been a long time." "Alpha," the figure said, voice smooth and controlled, carrying an undercurrent of menace. I see you have claimed a mate. How fortunate for her. Kaelin's eyes narrowed, amber glowing like fire in the silvered darkness. You should not have come, he said, his voice a low growl. Leave now before the bond makes you regret it. The figure tilted their head, amusement flickering in their shadowed face. Regret, perhaps. Or perhaps the human has already changed more than you imagine. She is a part of your world now, and that makes her valuable. Alara's heart raced. The words carried a subtle threat she could not ignore, and she instinctively stepped closer to the wolf and Kaelin. She felt the bond stir, a subtle pull linking her, the wolf and the alpha in a shared awareness. Her pulse synced with theirs, a rhythm ancient and primal, reminding her that she was no longer merely a bystander in a world of power, danger and destiny. Kaelin took a step forward, placing himself between Alara and the intruder. Value is not the same as control, he said, his voice steady but charged. You threaten her and you threaten me. Leave now. The figure's laughter was soft, but it carried through the night like a blade through silk. Threaten? Alpha, do you not understand? The bond has chosen her, yes. But it also opens doors you may not wish to see. Secrets you have buried, mistakes you have hidden, all are visible now. And she is at the center. Alara's mind whirled. The bond had already changed her, had already stirred something deep within her that she could neither name nor resist. And now she understood. The connection was not only a source of power and protection, it was also a target, a vulnerability that could be exploited. The wolf shifted beside her, growling low and deep, muscles coiling like springs ready to strike. Kaelin's hand brushed its head briefly, an unspoken signal that they would act together, united in instinct and trust. Alara felt the bond respond, a rush of energy linking her heart to theirs, grounding her, guiding her. Do you truly think, Kaelin said, his voice sharp as a blade, that I will let her be used, that I will let the past dictate the future? The figure smiled, though it did not reach their eyes. Oh, Alpha, you always believed you could control everything. But some things, some truths, cannot be contained, no matter how powerful the bond. Suddenly, the shadows shifted again and other figures emerged, moving silently, surrounding the estate like a tide of darkness. Alara's breath caught. She realized with a sinking certainty that they were outnumbered, but the bond thrummed through her, steady and insistent, reminding her that she was not alone. Kaelin's eyes blazed, and he drew a silent signal to the wolf. The creature leapt forward, a silver streak of power and motion blocking the path of the first intruder. Alara felt the rush of instinct, the bond pulling her, teaching her, warning her. She moved beside the wolf, stepping into the night with courage she did not know she possessed. The intruders hesitated, clearly not expecting her presence. Kaelin's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, grounding her, reassuring her. Trust the bond, he whispered. Trust the wolf. Trust yourself. Alara's pulse raced as she felt the energy flow through her. The bond was no longer subtle. It was a force alive and urgent, connecting her, the wolf, and Kaelin in a shared awareness of threat and possibility. She realized that she could feel their movements, anticipate danger, and respond with a clarity that surprised her. The intruders advanced, but Kaelin moved with lethal precision. Each motion measured, controlled, and fluid. The wolf was a blur of silver and strength, defending her with instinctual ferocity. And Alara, for the first time, felt the bond truly awaken. She moved with awareness, her actions guided by an intuition she could not explain, dodging, stepping, and reacting in harmony with the wolf and the alpha. Time seemed to stretch and fold around them. Shadows and moonlight danced across the clearing, and the air was thick with tension and energy. Alara felt a strange exhilaration, a mix of fear, adrenaline, and wonder. She realized that the bond was not just about protection. It was about connection, courage, and the awakening of something within her that had always been dormant. The leader of the intruders stepped forward, drawing a blade that gleamed cold in the moonlight. You cannot protect her forever, Alpha, they said, voice hard and precise. The bond is strong, yes, but even strength has limits, and the past always catches up. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. Then you will learn what it means to test the bond, he said, his voice carrying authority and promise. A sudden movement, swift, silent, caught Alara's attention. The figure lunged, but the wolf reacted instantly, intercepting with a controlled power that made Alara gasp. She felt the bond tighten, a rush of shared energy and awareness that made her heart race. Kalen moved as one with the wolf, his movements precise, predatory, and protective. Alara's pulse synced with theirs, her senses sharpened by the connection. She realized that the bond was teaching her, guiding her, drawing strength from fear and courage alike. And in that moment, she understood a truth deeper than any she had known. She was no longer helpless. She was part of a force ancient, powerful and unbreakable. The intruder stumbled back, clearly unprepared for the unity and instinct displayed by the alpha, the wolf, and their mate. Kalen's amber eyes blazed with warning, and his voice, low and commanding, echoed through the clearing. "Leave now and do not return. The bond will protect her, and we will not forgive." For a tense moment, silence fell. The wind stirred the leaves, and the shadows shifted, uncertain. The intruder hesitated, weighing the cost of defiance. Then slowly they retreated, melting back into the forest, leaving the night quiet once more. Alara's knees trembled as she sank to the ground beside the wolf, her hands brushing its thick fur. She felt the bond pulse gently, a reminder of connection, strength, and protection. Kalen knelt beside her, his gaze softening, though still filled with an intensity that made her chest ache. "You did well," he said quietly, "more than well. You faced fear, danger, and the unknown, and you did not falter. That is the strength the bond recognizes." Alara exhaled shakily. I didn't know I could do any of that," she admitted. Kalen's lips curved slightly. "You can. And you will. There is more to learn, more to endure, and more to become. The bond has only begun to awaken. And so have you." The wolf settled beside her, resting its massive head on her lap once more. Alara felt a profound sense of calm, tempered with exhilaration. She realized that her world had changed irrevocably. She was no longer just a human woman. She was a mate, a part of a bond that connected past, present, and future. And she was learning what it meant to be part of something greater than herself. But as the moon climbed higher, casting silver light across the estate and forest, Alara sensed that the night's trials were far from over. The shadows had shifted, the past had stirred, and the bond had awakened forces beyond her understanding. She looked at Kalen, then at the wolf, and felt a surge of resolve. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them. She was no longer alone, and the bond, fierce, ancient, and unbreakable, would guide her through the darkness. The howl that had split the night carried a depth of darkness that made Alara's chest tighten. It was not the wolf's nor any ordinary creature's. It was older, stronger, and filled with an energy that radiated both power and menace. The bond thrummed violently through her, anchoring her to Kalen and the wolf, demanding attention, awareness, and courage. Kalen's amber eyes were sharp, his body coiled like a spring. "It has come," he said, voice low and tense. "The shadow that has haunted me for centuries. It knows we are together, and it will not leave until the bond is tested to its limits." Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. She had faced intruders before, shadows of the past and whispered threats. But this was different. It was alive with purpose, and she could sense its hunger, its awareness, its intent. The wolf stirred beside her, muscles taut and ready. Its growl was low and resonant, vibrating through the floor and into her chest. Alara's hand pressed against its thick fur, feeling the steady pulse, the heartbeat of trust and protection. The bond surged, guiding her senses, sharpening her awareness. She could feel the movement of the forest, the shift of shadows, and the presence of something ancient and relentless. Kalen stepped forward, placing himself between her and the unseen threat. "Stay close," he commanded, amber eyes scanning the darkness. "The bond will protect you, but you must be ready. Your courage, your trust, your heart, they will be tested." Alara nodded, though her chest tightened with fear and anticipation. She had learned so much in the past days. The bond, the wolf, the power and danger that surrounded Kalen and his world. And yet, she knew that this was the true test. The moment when knowledge, courage, and connection would determine everything. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Unlike the previous intruders, this one was shrouded in a darkness that seemed to move with its own life. Its eyes glimmered with a cold intelligence, a power older than any Alara had ever sensed. The figure paused, observing them, and then stepped closer, the shadows stretching unnaturally around it. Kalen's hand went instinctively to the hilt of his blade, but his other hand brushed Alara's shoulder in a grounding gesture. "Remember the bond," he whispered. "It is more than instinct. It is connection, trust, and strength. Let it guide you. Elara inhaled deeply, feeling the bond pulse through her chest. It was not just a connection to the wolf or Kaelin. It was a force linking her courage, her heart, and her will with theirs. She felt the energy of the shadow, its malevolence, but she also felt the strength of the bond, ancient and unyielding. The shadow moved with a speed that was almost unnatural, lunging forward with a force that would have overwhelmed any ordinary opponent. But the wolf reacted instantly, intercepting with a controlled precision that made Elara gasp. Kaelin moved in perfect synchrony with the creature, their movements fluid, almost one as they blocked and countered the shadow's strikes. Elara felt the bond guiding her, sharpening her instincts. She moved with awareness, stepping into positions that allowed her to anticipate the shadow's movements. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat felt connected, a rhythm of unity and strength that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The shadow recoiled briefly, as if sensing something unexpected, the bond's true power. Kaelin's amber eyes flared with determination, and his voice rang out commanding and clear. You will not touch her. You will not break what we share. The shadow hesitated, then struck again, faster, sharper, more relentless. But the wolf and Kaelin were unwavering, and Elara, guided by the bond, found herself standing firm, fear giving way to a strange, empowering clarity. She realized that the connection she shared with them was not just protective, it was transformative. The shadow paused, circling them like a predator studying its prey. Its voice, cold and echoing, reached them. You cannot hide behind your bond forever, Alpha. The human is not yours by right. She is the key to power you cannot comprehend, and the bond will fail when the test is complete. Elara's pulse quickened, but she met the words with a steady resolve. She felt the wolf's presence, the thrum of Kaelin's determination and the ancient force that linked them. For the first time, she understood the depth of the bond. It was not just protection, it was trust, courage, and unity. And it would not fail as long as they faced it together. Kaelin moved closer to her, voice low but fierce. Do you understand what the bond means, Elara? It is not simply connection. It is strength, courage, and the willingness to face the impossible. And together, we are stronger than any shadow, any threat, any past. Elara's hands rested on the wolf's fur, grounding herself. I understand, she whispered. I trust it. I trust you, and I won't let it, or him, win. The shadow lunged one final time, its form twisting with unnatural speed. The wolf leapt, Kaelin struck, and Elara moved with precise instinct, their actions a seamless dance of trust and unity. The bond surged through her, a radiant force that pushed back the darkness. With a final resonant howl that echoed through the night, the shadow recoiled, its energy dissipating into the cold wind. For a heartbeat, the forest was silent, and then the night seemed to exhale, releasing tension and fear. The threat had passed, but its presence lingered, a reminder that danger was never truly gone. Elara sank to the ground beside the wolf, her hands brushing its fur, heart still racing. Kaelin knelt beside her, amber eyes softening as they met hers. You did it, he said quietly. You faced the darkness and you did not falter. That is the true strength of the bond. Tears welled in Elara's eyes, not from fear, but from the overwhelming clarity of the moment. She had faced something ancient and powerful, and she had survived, not alone, but together with Kaelin and the wolf. The bond had guided her, strengthened her, and shown her a depth of courage she had never known. Kaelin reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle yet charged with a quiet intensity. You are more than you realize, Elara. And together we are more than the past, more than the shadows, more than any force that seeks to divide us. Elara's chest tightened with emotion. She realized that she no longer feared the bond, the wolf, or Kaelin. She had embraced them all, understanding that connection, trust, and courage were the true sources of power. She felt her heart open, not only to Kaelin, but to the possibilities of the life she had never imagined. A life intertwined with strength, loyalty, and love. The wolf nudged her gently, resting its massive head on her lap. She ran her fingers through its fur, feeling the steady pulse of life and the quiet strength that had guided her through the night. The bond thrummed softly, a gentle reminder that they were connected, united, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Kaelin rose, offering his hand to her. Come, he said. The night is quiet now, but the bond is eternal. And with it, we can face anything. Alara took his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch and the surge of energy through the bond. Together, they stepped out into the moonlight, the wolf at their side, a united force of courage, strength, and trust. The forest was calm, but the memory of the shadows lingered. Alara knew that danger would always exist, that the past would whisper, and that the world of the Alpha was filled with trials and tests. Yet she also knew that she was no longer alone, that the bond was real, and that she had found a place where she belonged. Kaylin's amber eyes met hers, and in that gaze she saw centuries of solitude, loss, and struggle softened by trust, loyalty, and connection. She understood then that love was not just a feeling, but a force as ancient and enduring as the bond itself. For the first time, Alara felt truly seen, truly recognized, and truly home. The wolf lay beside her, breathing softly, a constant presence of protection and guidance, and Kaylin, the Alpha, stood with her in silence, a guardian, a partner, and a mate bound not by mere choice, but by destiny itself. The moon rose higher, casting silver light across the forest and the estate. Alara felt the bond pulse gently, steady and eternal, a reminder that whatever the future held, shadows, tests or trials, she would face it with courage, with trust, and with a heart open to love. And in that quiet, silvered night, the bond whispered a truth she had come to understand. They were stronger together, unstoppable in unity, and destined to endure whatever the world, the shadows, or history sought to challenge. Alara smiled softly, feeling the pulse of connection, the weight of destiny, and the warmth of love that had grown through fear, challenge, and the awakening of her own courage. The bond was complete, and for the first time in her life she felt truly alive.